Stock Radio Newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
Good day with your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw. First with the highlights. The opposition, a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, has tabled 2 motions to punish the House Speaker and 21 government parliamentarians. A murder convict who was sentenced to life imprisonment has been recaptured. In the region, Antigua and Barbuda will soon no longer require persons to be vaccinated to enter the country. In Barbados, the leader of the Democratic Labour Party has resigned after her party failed to win a seat in last week's general elections. And internationally, the president of Burkina Faso, Roch Kabore, has reportedly been detained by mutinying soldiers. And that there is your news highlight. The details of these stories and more in just a moment.
Advertise with us on News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM for best coverage on programs on motivation, beauty and health, parenting and relationships, knowing your rights, and a variety of enlightening content, and get value for your money. Call our helpful staff today on 223-1056 or 223-1041 today.
Now for the news in detail. The opposition, a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU plus AFC, has filed a no-confidence motion against the House Speaker, Manzoor Nadir. This move comes amid fears that House Speaker Manzoor Nadir might impose serious sanctions on opposition parliamentarians over the chaos that erupted in the chamber late last month to block debate and passage of wealth fund legislation. In its motion moved by Opposition Leader Joseph Harmon and seconded by Opposition Chief Whip Christopher Jones, APNU plus AFC states that the Speaker has demonstrated partiality and brought the office of the Speaker into disrepute and public ridicule and the National Assembly into public odium. The opposition says that from the inception of his tenure, the Speaker has routinely shown bias against the opposition and its members by alia, refusing to allow debates on matters of an urgent, definite, and public nature. After listing several alleged transgressions by the House Speaker, the motion calls on the National Assembly to declare its loss of confidence in him. The governing People's Progressive Party, PPP, has 33 seats, APNU plus AFC 31, and the Liberty and Justice Party, LJP, 1. Motions and bills require a simple majority of 65 seats. The Speaker of the National Assembly has already denied being biased. The opposition, a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU plus AFC, also wants 22 government parliamentarians, including Prime Minister Mark Phillips, to be sent to the Privileges Committee for possible disciplinary action. The opposition says that their conduct and behavior were not parliamentary and brought the Parliament and the National Assembly into disrepute and invited public odium into the affairs of the Assembly. The APNU plus AFC also admitted that during the sitting of the National Assembly, members of the opposition and the government ended up in a physical, loud, and aggressive face-off in the well of the National Assembly. The opposition maintains that the Natural Resource Fund legislation was not passed because the government MPs had not been seated and that a replica of the mace had been used. Mr. Nadir is on record as warning that the gross disorderly conduct of some of the members during the last sitting of the National Assembly will not be condoned. Guyana's COVID death toll has risen to 1,134, with the passing of 4 more persons. 3 of them are from Region 3, West Demerara, Essequibo Islands, and 1 is from Region 10, Upper Demerara, Upper Berbice. 2 of them were fully vaccinated, 1 was not, and the vaccination status of the other 1 was not known. The Health Ministry says it recorded 642 new cases. Of the 175 persons who are hospitalized, 19 are in the intensive care unit. At the moment, the Health Ministry says 13,580 persons have been ordered to isolate themselves at home. A convicted murderer was at the weekend recaptured 7 months after he had escaped from the Lusignan prison, East Coast Demerara. Police say that Shazam Khalil was arrested Saturday night at number 2 Blairmont squatting area, West Coast Berbice. He had escaped on June 8 last year. Director of Prison Nicklon Elliott confirmed that police in Blairmont, acting on information, recaptured the escapee at a house in the area. He was immediately taken into custody. According to Elliott, he will be charged with escaping from lawful custody. Khalil, also known as Boy of Lot 53 Shields-Town, West Bank Berbice, was admitted to prison on August 19, 2016. At the time of his escape, Khalil was serving a life sentence with the possibility of parole only after 24 years. Khalil, who previously worked as a cane harvester, was sentenced to life imprisonment by Justice Joanne Barlow for the murder of Shaniza Mohammed, his teenage ex-girlfriend, at Rosignol, West Coast Berbice, in January 2015. Police say that several stalls in the Stabroek Market area have been searched and 478 grams of marijuana have been recovered. During the search last Friday, police say that a quantity of Ziploc plastic bags containing leaves, seeds, and stems suspected to be cannabis sativa were found abandoned in 2 black plastic bags. Police also say that they stopped and searched a 20-year-old and 23 Ziploc plastic bags containing leaves, seeds, and stems suspected to be cannabis sativa were found in his pocket. He was told of the offense committed, cautioned, arrested, and taken to Breakdown Police Station, where the suspected narcotics were weighed and amounted to 31 grams. Police are looking for 4 identifiable females who allegedly threw corrosive liquid on a woman. Injured is 24-year-old Ranisha Maxwell of West Rheinfeld, Georgetown. Investigators say that she sustained burns to her back and left hand. Her condition is now regarded as stable. The incident occurred Friday night on Norton and John Streets, Georgetown. Police say that Miss Maxwell took a taxi from Leopold Street, and as she was traveling, she observed a car following the one that she was in. Investigators were informed that she told the driver to stop, and when he did, she alleges that the 4 females exited the trailing car and approached her. One of the females then threw a liquid substance on her, and she immediately felt a burning sensation about her body and began to scream. Now for the news in the region. In Suriname, an ex-singer of a well-known band was arrested Sunday in connection with the embezzlement of more than $30,000. Waterkant News reports that the band manager filed a complaint against the singer, known only as Praveen B, last week. Police were informed that the suspect allegedly took advances from persons but did not transfer the money to the manager. On January 16, the manager posted a statement on Facebook that Praveen is no longer part of his music formation. Furthermore, the manager wrote that persons who have already paid an advance to Praveen should contact him. Prime Minister Gaston Brown says the mandatory vaccination requirement to enter Antigua and Barbuda could become a thing of the past. He, however, says that they will have to prove that they do not have the coronavirus COVID-19.
We could see, for example, a relaxation of the vaccine mandate, which requires mandatory vaccinations in order to enter the country. We could literally eliminate that requirement and to allow for individuals vaccinated or unvaccinated to enter the country, provided they test using an approved rapid test or PCR test. So that is one of the restrictions that I could see us lifting. And again, we're moving now towards a policy of personal responsibility.
The Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister says that the government is also exploring ways of reducing the cost of testing. Mr. Brown says that the government will be acquiring user-friendly testing kits to be provided to medical practitioners to drive down the cost. The leader of Barbados' opposition Democratic Labour Party, DLP, Varla de Pisa, has resigned after her party's crushing defeat at the hands of Mia Mottley-led Barbados Labour Party, BLP. 2 days after the BLP won all 30 seats at the election held on January 19, Ms. de Pisa resigned. But the DLP says it will not be electing a new leader until April. That decision to push back the election of a new leader has since been described as a madness by Barbadian political strategist Hartley Henry. Mr. Henry says that this is the moment that the DLP should seize rather than allow the party to go into paralysis. He says the DLP's current constitution should be amended in order to have a popular mass-based political leader elected. He says if the DLP has a political leader, Barbados' President Sandra Mason and the Prime Minister Motley can approach that person for the naming of 2 senators. And lastly in the region, a Rastafarian leader in the Bahamas says while he has not yet met with any government official regarding cannabis legislation, he is hopeful his community's sacramental rights will be given legal protection. Richmond McKenney, highest priest of the Bahamian Rastafarian Bobo Shanti tribe, spoke with the Tribune on whether the new administration had officially consulted his community while drafting its new marijuana legislation. Mr. McKenney hopes the Davis administration will uphold recommendations made by the previous administration's Bahamas National Commission on Marijuana. He recalls that when the current ruling party was in opposition, it had stated that there was nothing wrong with the Rastafarians getting their sacramental rights. He also voiced his support for the current administration by saying that he believes that the Davis administration will be more sympathetic to their sacramental rights and factor in their need to have a stake in the proposed cannabis industry. Mr. McKenney said his community wants a part of all of the licenses to cultivate, manufacture, and export marijuana. He also pointed out that it was his community that first saw the potential in the cannabis industry and that they faced years of hardship and discrimination campaigning for its legislation while the country suffered as a result. Last week, the Bahamas government announced that the Davis administration is expected to introduce legislation for a cannabis industry in the first quarter of this year. Here now is your international news coming from the BBC.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. NATO has announced it's sending additional ships and fighter jets to member states in Eastern Europe as a response to a continuing build-up of Russian forces near Ukraine. It's also putting forces on standby. Here's Jonathan Beale.
They're calling this reinforcing Allied deterrence, and it is modest. It's nothing like the scale of what the Russians are doing. It is, for example, Denmark sending 4 F-16 jets to Lithuania. These are missions that NATO has already been carrying out since 2014 when Russia invaded Crimea, essentially. But what you see here is a core set of states willing to say we're going to put more resources into this to defend the alliance. Clearly, there will be a bigger response in Eastern Europe if Russia invades Ukraine.
With tensions between Russia and the West running high, the ruble has hit a 14-month low against the dollar, and the stock market in Moscow has tumbled. Since the start of the year, it's lost more than 15%. Jonathan Josephs reports.
The falls in the ruble and the main stock markets in Moscow reflect traders' fears that their money isn't safe in Russia. Even tougher economic sanctions than those already in place have been threatened by the West. They could go as far as cutting Russia off from the global financial system. The hostilities have also pushed up the price of oil and gas, amid concerns supplies could be disrupted. Russia is one of the world's biggest exporters, and the Kremlin, which needs the money they bring in, has reiterated that it is a reliable supplier to the EU and others, despite the current tensions.
The president of Burkina Faso is being held in a military barracks in the capital, Ouagadougou, a day after an army mutiny. A post on Roch Kabore's Twitter account called for people to lay down their arms and focus on dialogue. It's not clear who wrote the tweet. The West African regional bloc, ECOWAS, has called for the soldiers involved in what it calls a coup attempt not to harm Mr. Kabore. Sam Mednick, is an Associated Press journalist, and he's in the capital.
Right now, everyone is just waiting for a statement to be made. It sounds like it will be made by the mutinous soldiers who say they have detained the president. They are keeping him in a safe place. There are helicopters flying overhead. There's a lot of military buildup, particularly outside the state broadcaster, and gunshots could be heard late into the night last night, as well as helicopters in different parts around the city. There are people who are supporting this military takeover. People have taken to the streets, shouting, riding their bikes, chanting. People I've spoken to said that they're happy with the military taking over. They're fed up with the president. They're upset at the growing jihadist attacks and violence across the country. And then so there seems like there's support for this.
That was the Associated Press journalist Sam Mednick reporting from the capital of Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou. This is the World News with the latest BBC News. Thousands of people have demonstrated across Sudan in the latest protests against last year's coup. There have been rallies in cities including Khartoum, Wad Madani and Gedaref. Mary Harper reports.
Police fired tear gas at protesters as they marched through the capital Khartoum, chanting slogans against the army. They demanded justice for the more than 70 people they say have been killed in the regular rallies held since October's coup. The security forces have repeatedly denied using live ammunition, insisting that dozens of police and soldiers have been injured by protesters. People come out in their thousands, day after day, despite the harsh response of the security forces and the detention of hundreds of activists.
Police in Germany say 4 people have been injured, some seriously, in an attack by a lone gunman that took place in a lecture hall in the university town of Heidelberg. They said the perpetrator is dead. Media reports suggest he was a student at the university and that he killed himself, but neither has been officially confirmed. The former Pope, Benedict XVI, has admitted he provided incorrect information to an inquiry into child abuse. He's acknowledged he attended a meeting more than 40 years ago at which the case of a priest and known paedophile was discussed, contrary to what he'd previously indicated. Pope Emeritus Benedict, who was then the Archbishop of Munich and Freising, had always denied knowing about the man's background. The former Pope's spokesman said the error was not made in bad faith. Western diplomats are holding talks with a Taliban delegation in Oslo, conveying their concerns about human rights and the need for an inclusive government in Afghanistan. The 3-day talks began on Sunday to discuss the humanitarian crisis in the country. Afghan civil society activists met with the Taliban on the opening day. BBC News.
And that was your international news. Here now is a recap of the highlights. The opposition, a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, has tabled 2 motions to punish the House Speaker and 21 government parliamentarians. A murder convict who was sentenced to life imprisonment has been recaptured. In the region, Antigua and Barbuda will soon no longer require persons to be vaccinated to enter the country. In the Barbados, the leader of the Democratic Labour Party has resigned after her party failed to win a seat in last week's general elections. And internationally, President of Burkina Faso, Roch Kabore, has reportedly been detained by mutinying soldiers. And that was your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.